Okay, good afternoon, people. So, like I said, we'll start with the excretory system today. Uh, so, in general, there is not much that is kept in this year's syllabus with respect to the excretory system. It's the internal and external structure of the kidney that you need to know. Awareness of whole of the excretory organs within the human body, like apart from kidney, that we need to know, that is lungs and skin majorly, but that is very brief. Function of each part of the kidney unit and the nephron structure, function of nephron and so on, and the process of urine formation. That is all that you have for this year's content. For next year, not next year, what was I going to say? Yeah, something that has been removed is the artificial kidney, or what we call as dialysis process. That has been totally removed, but we'll just describe it briefly so that you know it, what exactly it is. But that will happen almost at the end. And the another topic which has been removed is the regulation of this whole of the urinary process or urine formation process. But again, that is like in short connected with the these processes of production of urine. So we will see that briefly as well. And most of the content I'm assuming you might be aware of. When it comes to the nephron, that is where it will become like quite a lot of new stuff for you people. But like starting slides can be a little like generic. So the excretory system, the word excretory, ex means out, crete means flow. So something that flows out of the body, that's why the excretory. And the process of removal of this chemical waste, mainly nitrogenous from the body, is known as excretion. Now, can someone tell me why this would be called as mainly nitrogenous? Anyone? People. Nandan?
Could you repeat the question, sir?
Why would it be called as nitrogenous waste? Or mainly nitrogenous? Why would that word be here?
Because the body cannot process nitrogen.
Sorry, what did you say?
Maybe because the body cannot process nitrogen, or nitrogen is a byproduct of the processes.
Yes, but that way even carbon is not processed. In different forms it can be processed. But in a way, yes.
Processing is slower than the supply.
In a way, yes. Yes, Aditya was saying something, I guess.
Yes, sir. You're asking why they're called nitrogenous, or why is it nitrogenous? Like
why is it nitrogenous?
Maybe like because like I remember in 8th class in biochemistry, basically nitrogen is a unreactive substance, relatively speaking. It's relatively inert. Like most of our body is made up of COH, N, and phosphorus, and some calcium. So all the rest are active substances. Nitrogen is inert relatively, so it gets accumulated, and that's why.
Right. Also, so in addition to what Aditya said, it is the nitrogenous metabolites, they are toxic to the body, right? That means, let's say, for example, accumulation of urea within body can cause damage to those cells or tissues. So that is when they have to be removed. But if it is a carbon compound, for that matter, it can be reutilized in different ways. So there, the accumulation does not lead to like kind of death of those cells. But because these nitrogenous compounds, they are toxic to the body, they need to be removed, and that process is called as excretion. It plays means this excretory system plays important role in maintaining the homeostasis. Again, can anyone tell me what is homeostasis? What does this word mean? What does the word homeostasis mean? Karuna?
So like stability in the body, like in
Uh,
its and stuff.
Correct, but in what sense?
So like chemical stability.
Yeah, so it is more of fluid and substance or solute balance, what we call as electrolyte, vitamins, and so on. So them balancing in the proportion of water, what we have learned in terms of isotonicity, right? That's what is one of the stage of the homeostasis. So that means if we have X amount of water, we need to have X amount of electrolytes within the body. They need not be same, but they have to be proportional to each other. And throughout the body, it has to remain same. So that is what is maintaining the homeostasis of the body. So the organs which are concerned with the formation, that is whichever synthesize the urine, store the urine, and eliminate the urine, that will constitute the excretory system. Kidneys will form, urinary bladder will store, and urethra or the penis structure in male and the urethra in female. Both of these, they will act as the part of the excretory system. So that way, the excretory system is dealing with the formation, storage, as well as elimination of the urine. Now, what are those chemicals or the substances which are regularly removed from the body? So, the chemical substances which are regularly formed in our body and are absorbed through the food, they needs to be eliminated, right? But again, not to the extent that everything will go away. You will simply imagine that whatever food we eat obviously gets absorbed into the blood, and from blood it gets if it is in too much of excess that body doesn't need them, then they are being put out through the formation of urine. So that includes carbon dioxide, nitrogenous metabolites, excess salts and vitamins, water, and bile pigments. This carbon dioxide is not in the free form, it is always in the bicarbonate form, but that is still one of the chemical that goes out of the body. And also because urea is poisonous, so like I mentioned, why nitrogenous waste cannot be stored at times, because urea is poisonous, and if allowed to accumulate in the blood, like to a certain level, it can become poisonous and it can cause death of those cells. So that is the general information of this excretory system. Now, what exactly happens in terms of excretory system, or why it is yellow, or why it has certain color and so on? That is what we'll see here. So we know bile pigments, that is one of the bile pigment is called bilirubin. These are the breakdown products of hemoglobin. Now, and hemoglobin we get from the RBCs. So when the RBCs, they are dead, they are broken down into smaller components called hemoglobin, and of course other proteins. These hemoglobin molecules, they are broken down to even smaller fragments which we called as bilirubin, and of course they need a little bit of modification. And this whole of this process happens in the liver cells, because from the circulation, blood circulation, these dead RBCs will go to liver. That's where the bilirubin will be secreted. That bilirubin will be secreted again back into the bile juice, which is poured into the duodenum. That is after the stomach. The first patch of the intestine is called as duodenum. And into this duodenum, this bile juice is secreted from the liver part. So that way, this bile pigment, or what we call as bilirubin, is coming back to the what we call as the intestinal part. From there, it can again get reabsorbed. It can be broken down further, and that will go out of the urine as the excess molecule, and that is what also gives a color to your urine, like pale yellowish or yellowish color, is because of the urochrome, or a breakdown product of the bilirubin. So that is the fact. So these pigments, they are modified in the intestine to pigments that gives faces also yellowish brown color. So again, the fecal matter, that is undigested and unabsorbed molecules or unabsorbed substances from your intestinal tract, they are getting the yellowish color, is also because of the bilirubin, which is a bile pigment. And again, that coloration varies depending on the diet and so on. Same is the case with urine. If you drink lot of water, or if there are less of RBCs being dead, then that yellow pigment will be less, or it will be more diluted, so you may not be able to see yellowish coloration, and it will be more like a transparent urine. Excretion, so like looking at all of these facts, excretion is the removal of all harmful and unwanted substances from the body, especially the nitrogenous waste. One of the major difference that you should know is whatever is soluble goes out of the body in urine, whatever is insoluble, that goes out as fecal matter from the body, right? So that way, these processes, they are kind of compatible with each other. Whatever is soluble will be taken out by the excretory system. In general, this part you would know. Excretory system consists of a pair of kidneys, left and right, a pair of ureters, urinary bladder, and the urethra. So these are the 4 different organs involved in the organ system of excretory system. Does anyone have any question here? So far, this is relatively very easy, but still, if anyone wants to ask anything. Where is my bottle? You don't love yourself? Yeah. Where is my bottle? I will die out of thirst. You will die. There is water tank. You come along.
We will not die out of thirst, sir. Maximum happens you can drink these people cup blood.
I will drink blood of these people. I will turn vampire. Yes. Okay, fine. Anyways, I can survive until the class. So, like I mentioned, apart from kidneys or apart from the urinary system, there are other excretory organs within our body. We generally misunderstand the excretory system is only urinary system, but urinary system or kidneys, that is one part of the excretory organs, right? So for sure, kidney is one of them, which will that is the primary excretion organ, removing the urea or the excretory products in the form of urine. The second and most important excretory organ is the skin with the sweat glands, right? These are primarily concerned with the cooling of the body because they regulate the temperature, what we know as thermoregulation. That is again, that is whole lot of process. Whenever there is a high temperature, body wants to cool down. That will give signal to the brain. Brain will secrete prostaglandin. Prostaglandin will cause the secretion of certain chemicals, and that will stimulate the sweat glands to secrete the like sweat or secrete the water through the skin. And this sweat also carries small amount of nitrogenous waste, a very tiny portion of it, and also salt like molecule. That's when like people say the sweat is salty, right? I'm sure some of you must have tested it randomly. So,
Yeah, it is salty. Yeah.
so that way, the sweat also secretes or excretes some amount of nitrogenous waste and also the salt. But the major function of sweat gland is thermoregulation, that is cooling down of the body at different temperature situation. And the third excretory organ is the lungs. And major excretion product there is carbon dioxide, which everyone knows. But the kidney is the one which is actually filtering out whole of the blood in terms of its soluble component, and whatever is in excess or whatever is not required or harmful to the body, that will be taken out in the form of urine. So that is one of the major excretory organ. Okay, now we will look at the structure of this whole of this urinary system. So the basic facts, you know it very well. Kidneys, they are bean shaped, they are located on the either side of the backbone and are protected by the ribs. So if you want to locate your kidneys, usually like there are ribs on both sides, right? And at the base of the rib, and you just go towards back side, towards the center of the back, that's where your kidneys will be located. Not the at the center, but on the side. But if you face like if you touch your back at the center, like center of the two centers, 1/4 centers, you can say, that's where the kidneys will be located on the back side. They are just below the just next to the ribs rather. So there are different ribs located in your thoracic cage or the rib cage. The last two ones, these are the floating ribs, and that's where these kidneys are located, and they are also protected by the muscles of the back, that is of the back side of your body. So that is the basic. Now, in general, right kidney is slightly lower than the left one. Does anyone know why this happens?
Yeah, I have a. I'm not sure, but it's a guess. Huh? Right. बोलना मत कुछ. Basically, the heart is very no, it's located in the center. So the heart's located in the center, but if I'm not wrong, the left side of the heart is slightly stronger, and that's why it pushes down, and because of that, maybe something like that.
Not really. I mean, it's not related to heart. I mean, why? You clearly don't love yourself.
So can you show the bottle once again? Can you show the bottle?
Wine bottle.
No, nothing. I just thought there was something black at the bottom of the bottle. Black.
Okay. So if you look at this diagram, maybe you can identify some clue. Anyone wants to say, or shall I take some names? Mahi.
तो किडनी के ऊपर ही है. किडनी के ऊपर फेंट सा.
That one is adrenal gland.
like right kidney के left में.
Right is lower than left.
Yeah, so you're saying इधर से hint मिलेगा. I'm asking कि किडनी के बगल में देखो, there are these two weird things like
these ones, yellowish one.
No, not the yellow, red color. They look like flesh. Yeah, that.
These ones.
Yeah. Is that the lung? What is it?
Lungs will be above this.
Okay.
So because of the liver present on the right side, right? And liver occupies quite a lot of space. So that's when the right kidney is slightly lower, because on that side there is liver, which is one of the large organ, right? Large in terms of contextual large, because within that much space to fit everything, it is little difficult, and that's when the right kidney, maybe I guess 1 or 2 centimeter, it will be slightly lower compared to the left one. So that is why it is lower. So the main reason is because of the presence of the liver on the right side. The right kidney is slightly lower. Now just the physical dimension that you need to be aware of. It's hardly, yes,
Sorry, can you repeat why it's slightly lower?
because the liver is present on that side. So to accommodate all the other organs, it may not have sufficient space, and that's why the right side kidney is slightly low. Yeah, so just the physical dimension of the kidney, 10 to 12 centimeter long. So it's hardly like very small organ, 5 to 7 centimeter in terms of width, and weight is usually around 120 to 170 gram depending on the individual. Average weight is kind of 150, 145 to 150. So that is just the physical aspect of the kidneys. They have inner concave structure, that also you are very much aware. Now coming to the other aspect of this kidney, so the blood vessels, that is incoming and outgoing blood vessels from the kidneys, the ureter and the nerves, that is all these three things, they enter the kidneys at a point which is called as hilum. Everyone must have seen kidney bean, right? At the center of the kidney bean, on the concave part, there is something like a oval structure. That's actual hilum in the plant seeds. Something like that is present in these kidneys as well. So this point through which the blood vessels either enter or go out, and even the ureters come out, that particular point is called as hilum of the kidney. And obviously there will be right kidney will have one and the left will have other one. So that is the hilum part, which is nothing but a notch at the inner concave surface of the kidney. Notch as in a little groove like structure, right? It is going a little inward. So that is what is notch or the hilum part. Then the renal pelvis is the large funnel shaped space which is present inner to the hilum and has many projection called as calyces. So that this part I will show you here in the other diagram. So this is kind of sections of the kidney. Section which is longitudinal section, that means vertically if you cut the kidneys, that's what you see, longitudinal section. So this particular outer part which is shown in red, and then there is something in light, what is this color, pink or orange or whatsoever, light red color, right? So this inner part, that is called as renal pelvis. So ureter or the arteries or blood vessels, they are entering the kidney through this hilum part, which is a notch like part, and this ureter opens into renal pelvis area. You can also see this area which is looks like branches, that is the renal pelvis, which is opening of the ureter, or that's where the ureter starts. You can say it either way. So that is the renal pelvis next to the hilum portion. And it has many projections known as calyces, or singular is calyx. So calyces, where is the calyx? Yeah, you can see this branching like structure of the renal pelvis. That is what is called as calyx. Individually is called as calyx, and plural of that calyx is calyces. So that is the renal calyx of the kidney. Then the next point is so the urine that is produced in the kidney, it constantly flows through the ureters and collects in the urinary bladder. So as and when the urine is produced, it gets collected into the renal pelvis. From there, it will enter into the ureter. From ureter, it will enter into the bladder. So that's like the usual flow of the urine. So from kidney, it will, from the structural units of the kidney, it will enter into the renal pelvis next to hilum. From there, it will enter into the ureters on both sides, and then from ureter, it will be gathering into the urinary bladder. So this, I suppose, is not suppose, this is clearly a female body that is being shown here because it's with the uterus, right? And so uterus is usually behind or little upward, then there is urinary bladder, and that's what yellow colored liquid that is being shown is the urine, which will be passed out through the urethra. So that is the general structure, and this is like a representative diagram. If at all you have to draw, you can draw a diagram like this with the same structure. So kidneys, ureters, urinary bladder, and the urethra. These are the four main things you should remember. Then looking at the structure a little more in continuation to what we have seen, the urine is intermittently emptied from the urinary bladder to the outside of the body through the urethra. Now this part we already know, like it is not like that the urine is formed and then we have to go and urinate, right? That does not happen. It can be stored for a certain time until the bladder is full, and that is when a person can go and urinate, and that process of urination happens through urethra. The opening of the ureters, specifically of the ureters into the bladder. Now another thing I must mention, do not get confused between urethra, ureter, uterus. Three similar words, right? Which one is urethra, which one is ureter, and which one is uterus, that has to be distinctly clear in your head. Uterus should not even come into picture when we are talking of excretory system, right? Remaining portion of the urethra and ureters. Ureters are simple tubular structure which pass urine from kidneys to bladder, and from bladder to outside body, that is urethra. So the opening of the ureters into the bladder, they are projecting inward and that act like walls. So let me show you that part as well. So exactly, this diagram is little faulty. That's what is the like these ureters or these tubular structure, they are projecting little inward that to the urinary bladder. So that means beyond this wall of the urinary bladder, this ureter will be intact inside as a pipe-like structure, which acts as a sphincter or which acts as like kind of gate or wall, which does not allow the backflow of the urine into the ureter. So that is the function of this extended projection of the ureters into the bladder, which is not shown in the diagram. Ideally, they should be shown. So that is the what we call as this extended projection of the ureters into the bladder, and the function is to prevent the backflow of the urine when the bladder contracts to pass out the urine. So obviously whenever someone wants to urinate, the bladder contracts. That's when the urine gets pushed out of the urethra, and it can also go back, but it does not go back because of this ureters being present, having this wall-like structure. Then there is something called a sphincter, which is a circular muscle that will guard the opening of the bladder into the urethra. So at the base of the urethra, both in case of male as well as female. In case of male, it is more stronger circular muscle structure because of the structure of the penis. While in case of female, that is not the case, right? Though they do have a certain sphincter present in the female body. So these sphincters, they guard the opening of the bladder into the urethra and relaxes only at the time of urination. That is under the impulse of the brain. So whenever brain gets a signal that now the bladder is full and it's time to urinate for that particular body, then the sphincters are relaxed based on the condition. And this process of urination is scientifically called as micturition. MICTURTION. So that is micturition, right? Which is nothing but the process of urination or expulsion of urine from the body to outside. That is micturition. The a longitudinal section of the kidney, like whatever we were seeing, that is the vertical section. It shows two main regions. That is the outer dark cortex and the inner lighter medulla. Now, if you remember the structure of the root like from outside to inside, it's always closer to the outer layer, it's always the cortex, and the innermost portion is always the medulla. Whether you talk of plant, whether you talk of human organs or so on, even the brain has cortex, which is outside layer. Medulla is the inner portion of the brain. Similarly, kidney also has two sections, renal cortex and renal medulla. So cortex is a little dark, and again this diagram does not show that dark cortex, rather it shows exactly opposite, but that is again a faulty thing. But this diagram is representation wise a good diagram except the color code. So cortex is more darker, and the reason being because the nephrons are present there. From the cortex there are nephrons which are directly connected to the blood vessels, and that is when the cortex is relatively more darker because of the color of the blood. And the renal medulla, which is shown darker here, is ideally a lighter in color because that has only a part of the urine which is lighter in color, of course. So that way the cortex, which is the outermost part, is darker, and the medulla, which is the inner part of the kidney, is lighter in color. Where are we? Where did I miss this statement? Yeah, sorry, my bad. So that is the two parts of the kidneys in the longitudinal section, that is renal cortex and renal medulla. Now the renal medulla is composed of the finely striped tissues arranged in a conical pyramids. Now again, if you look at these diagrams, you may not be able to imagine how they are arranged. So like for example, you have those rose bouquet, right? They have quite many roses in conical shape arranged in a certain structure. Now something similar, like all those conical shapes arranged in three-dimensional in the form of kidney vein shape, right? That will give you a complete picture of the whole kidney. So there can be two conical shapes. Like here you can see only one conical shape in this section, but behind that or in front of it there can be another conical shapes, or what we call as these pyramids present within this what we call as renal medulla. So medulla is composed of finely striped tissues because they look like stripes, so that is why it is finely striped tissues arranged in several conical pyramids, and the apex of each of these pyramid, that is the tip of this pyramid, is called as papilla. So let me show you that papilla. So if you see, this is the triangular in 2 dimension. In 3 dimension, this will be conical shape, and this apex, that is the tip of the pyramid, is called as papilla, or it is also called as medullary papilla. Like there will be many of these papilla structure. So each of these conical shape will have one papilla present into them. So the apex or the papilla of the pyramid will project into the pelvis of the kidney. So in simplest term, if I have to explain whole of the mechanism, there are nephrons present here. From here, the blood will be filtered out. It will enter into the parts of the nephron. From there, it will be emptied through this apex into the renal calyx, which was shown here, renal calyx. And from there it will enter into pelvis. From there it will go into the ureters and then bladder and so on. So that is the general flow of the urine. So renal papilla, these are the ones which are projecting inward into the pelvis of the kidney. And then kidneys, they are composed of many such small tubules, what we call as uriniferous tubules or nephrons or renal tubules or kidney tubules. So that way, why this is double here? Oh, now it has come up. So that is the like structural and functional unit of the kidney, what we call simply as uriniferous tubules, or commonly what you know as nephrons. I guess we can, what time is it? We can take a break here, 16. Yeah, it will be too much of the content. We can take a break here. Tomorrow we'll continue with the structure of the nephron, and then the details of this nephron structure. So that's where we will continue. For today, let's stop here. I don't want to put too much of information. If anyone has any question, you can ask. Otherwise, we can go.